Namaskar, Jai Hind, and hello to everyone. Welcome back to episode number 2 of Politico Military Decisions in Geopolitics in India since 1947. This is going to be an important episode, and for that, with me is Professor Sonali Chitarkar, who will be discussing the political aspects of POJK, maybe areas bordering with China, and most importantly, Tibet. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Colonel Pandey. So, in our previous episodes, we have already spoken about how geopolitics is important, and we had flagged off what happened in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, specifically how the creation of this region called POJK came about, and how Gilgit Baltistan fell under the control of Pakistan. So rather than go into, we have already flagged that off as an important event, and I would say that the importance of that event or the significance of that event lies in the fact that it has had geopolitical implications for the future of our country. So, from 1947 onwards, we have had repeated, events in that area which have made us realize, yes, that area was strategically important, geopolitically. We should have moved in a way that that area remains within our control. So, having said that, we saw how we even to date we see how the entire thrust of China, if you look at the thrust of China eastward, it which includes it coming down to strategic areas in Ladakh, and strategic areas in it's in the Sakshkam Valley and Aksai Chin, and you look at how that entire road is being mapped out, that entire region is being mapped out by China. It is trying to, what was earlier called the Silk Route is now being, defined as the Obor, and how that is the area which China is trying to have free access to. Its entire, I would say, its entire geopolitical code is based on control of that area, and that is the area which logically speaking takes you across to Central Asia. It's a comfortable land route across to Central Asia, and it gives you access to Iran, and so that is the thing we have missed. Having that region in our control today would have impacted the way that all China's actions, including the OBOR, including the entire thrust towards Central Asia, are shaping up. And that, I think, is the crux of why we are again and again speaking of POJK. The we have kind of written the Pak China axis in stone by not projecting our interests in this region. So that is something which.
This is so beautifully said that we have actually set it in stone. I have been talking about this in our last series also, last episode also. Not having a geopolitical culture simply means that we work in absolutely airtight compartments within the government, where the turfs are guarded so strongly that you do not let the other person step on your turf. Result is what? Today we have an India in our hands where Chinese border, LC, we have absolutely no control over the events. The geopolitical codes that Sonali has been talking of in our previous series, those geopolitical codes don't see anything. We have an absolutely redundant military leadership which does not write, does not express its opinion on geopolitics or what exactly are going to be the ramifications of certain actions, which is not in national interest. When we talk about national interest, it has to be the bureaucrats, the military, the politicians all sitting in one room as one nation. So we are hammering this one nation, one so and so, one nation, one so and so. I simply want to ask one question: where is one nation and one government? Within the government, you have these turf wars. Now, this is not new. This is happening from 75 years. 47, 15th August was a reality. What did we do to claim our areas that we call as POK over the next 75 years is important. Even today, the insurgency rages, and we are now very happy discussing how Afghanistan is going to affect India. And I have always been saying we are a reactive state. We do not shape our future. We take actions based on what has happened today. We don't even predict today 90 days before this. And that's why we evacuate after the government of in Afghanistan has been captured by Taliban. All this is not a good sign for us. It's not a good sign for bureaucracy or military or for politicians. The executive, all of them have to be one team, which is not. Most importantly, when we talk about our entire history, we talk about 56, 57 years with a particular party. We talk about balance years, either mixed or majority years with one party. We actually are handling geopolitics as a government file which goes from one table to another, one year to another, independent of who is now in power. We are extremely happy talking about the brave soldiers who sacrificed their lives, who were killed in action in 1965.
Yeah.
How ridiculous can it get? Even today. And it is even more ridiculous to find lieutenant generals who are retired on social media suddenly trying to make a hero out of few people of 65 war. Did you do your job of reading the geopolitics correctly and write articles to say where exactly did we go wrong? Everyone wants to put his chips only on one person, and you name him so and so Abdul Hamid or whatever. Or we are very happy with 71 killed in action people. We are too happy with Ye Dil Mange More, Kargil. Is our investment in the dead or is our investment in the country? Do you write about geopolitics as to what the ramification is? Why are we not taking 1999 as the biggest geopolitical event with Pakistan after 1947? We were not even able to guard our own LC. And we have intrusions taking place over a massive belt of 100 kilometers, 100 kilometers, 200 kilometers plus. And then we have 527 killed. And rather than getting into a very serious mold of revamping the entire mindset of the establishment of the military, we convert that into a Vijay Divas. Is this what our geopolitics is? Is this not a geopolitical event when intrusion on LC takes place in your area? And we create heroes out of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
If after 1971, if there was a chance for someone to become even bigger than Sam Manekshaw in reputation and military, it was the COAS of 1999 when the Kargil intrusions took place. There were so many things he could have done. But is this the geopolitics we have? And the best part is, we do not have anyone in military establishment, veterans, to even question Who is responsible for those 527 dead? We are extremely happy putting our money on one Vikram Batra or few other people for the 1999 and just cover it up. These are those blunders I talk of. So when we talk about military and geopolitics and how does it manifest into 99 is nothing else but manifestation of what we did not do in 47 or what we should have done in succeeding years thereafter, or maybe at take 71 as a watershed and then rewrite our geopolitics, and we should have rewritten the entire history. Did we do it? We don't plan 25 years ahead. So that's what actually is my take as far as the POJK is concerned. The manifestation from 1990, the insurgency starts. Even today, the people are dying. So is bureaucracy not as much responsible? Are the politicians as much not responsible for Pulwama or anything? Every time a soldier dies, the entire establishment is responsible. But rather than trying to find out the responsibility or the reason or how can we prevent it, we only want to talk about a Mahavir Chakra given in Galwan or what? This is not a correct thing. This is not the right geopolitics.
Uh,
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree, but yeah, I do totally agree that the Kargil war and what we've had subsequently are very ugly manifestations of our
absolutely.
geopolitical reckoning. So quickly, Colonel Pandey, also take us over Aksai Chin and Shaksgam Valley, so that you know.
Yeah, Aksai Chin and Shaksgam Valley we cannot discuss if we don't discuss Tibet,
Okay, so you want
right?
to, yeah.
So Shaksgam Valley is shown in India. Aksai Chin is shown within India as far as our maps are concerned. The public has absolutely no idea of what is happening where. They are fed information by the veterans who in turn are fed information by various sources, which may be positive or negative. And the government has got everyone, the military has got everyone, that the military commanders' talks have got everyone consumed with fingers. Finger one, finger two, finger three, finger four. Finger one, two, three, they are in square, not even in square kilometers. We are talking about Aksai Chin, the actual border being almost 200 kilometers away from there. We don't talk about Aksai Chin. No one knows what is Lakshthang mountain chain. No one knows what is Johnson Ardagh line.
Yeah, these.
We don't know any of this. And because we don't know any of this, we have no idea of what is happening with China. There is a series of 10 articles that I have written, which are available on my website www.colonelsanjaypandey.com, which talk in great detail about what is this China dispute, Indo-China border dispute. And the core of that is Tibet.
Okay.
And like we have been telling you, we simply exchange topics that we are going to be discussing on a video. When we come and sit here, we don't even know what the other person has made notes. So it's only on the camera that we start expressing our opinion.
So I think we should quickly go on to Tibet now.
All over you.
and
Yeah, it's all yours.
I would be taking the position that basically what India did in 1950 with Tibet was geopolitically, politically, and morally a wrong position. Basically, what we did was we allowed China to take over Tibet, which at that point of time, I don't think I can get past without criticizing the present political dispensation. Well, if we are criticizing Kargil, we are also criticizing the political dispensation of that time. So I will also take the liberty of saying that what the political dispensation at that time did was not only against national interest but was also against any laid out principles of morality. It should have supported Tibet for maintenance of independence, and it should have ensured that at some point of time, China should have had to withdraw from. That kind of pressure should have been mounted. What I see happening in Tibet at that point of time is very, very similar to what's happening in the case of Afghanistan right now. Be it the moral, political, geopolitical positions that sovereign governments are taking, or that United Nations has taken. That's my stand on it. Geopolitically, we needed Tibet as an independent buffer state between us and China. And we couldn't do that.
Okay, fine. I'll just ask one question before I take on Tibet. Or do you have anything more
No,
to
no,
say?
no,
Okay, fine. Just one question. Uh, what is Tibet's history with India?
that doesn't matter.
Why?
Tibet's history with India doesn't matter. We are talking geopolitics.
Okay, fine. So let's talk geopolitics, right?
Yeah.
So Sonali says that it does not matter of what Tibet's history was. As I look at geopolitics, Tibet's history is as much part of geopolitics for any other nation, as much for India. To me, the center of mess of Indo-China border dispute is Tibet and the different stand that India has taken. I am a political veteran. I do not talk about parties. But in this particular case, I would like to just make one mention. Present government, which has been in power, give or take 10 years plus minus in whatever number of tenures that they have been in government, versus the other party, which has been, say, 56, 57 years in power. You have to separate China issue as per these parties because there are two different and distinct things that come out. Today, I think the government needs to actually sit down and think as how this entire Indo-China border dispute will be viewed if you separate out those years, 56, 57 with 10, 12 years. And we are in the right place, right position to probably start the process of sorting out this thing permanently. To me, history matters quite a lot. Tibet as a landmass has nothing to do with India and nothing to do with China. Himalayas on this side, Kulian on the other side. These mountain ranges separate the mainland China from Tibet and India from Tibet. This landmass has been in existence for more than 1700 years today. For almost about 1,000 years, they were under various powers. For 400 years, they were independent. And in 1720, Qing dynasty defeated them. Qing dynasty, right from 1720 to 1912, 192 years of uh, unbroken continuation of dynasty was broken by PGRC in 1913, 1213, which carried on till 1949 when PRC, the Communist China, took over. They declared their constitution in 59. 1949. So before even our constitution came, that constitution had already come. And almost today, when I am talking to you and this video you are seeing, it's 300 years. It has been under direct control. Tibet has been trying to get its independence. And as Britishers have been in past, the only thing they have created is mess, which they started in 1865. After they had defeated the Sikhs, the Dogras had gone and captured some areas in Tibet, absolutely on the fringe, in the areas where now all this action is going on. Pangong Su, Chushul, Demchok, fringes they had captured. Tibet is too deep inside, too big. If we talk as India and Tibet, there has been no exchange in history. 1949, 1950, when we came up, that is the time the first decision of Tibet was handled by India. Should we recognize, should we not? Should we have used recognition of Tibet as a reason to settle border dispute with China at that time? I don't know what the conditions were then. Any number of authors you read, and you always will find different versions coming out. But as an event, when you say that if you take Tibet as a whole, thereafter having permitted Dalai Lama, given him the area near Dharamshala and all that, and various other places right up to Arunachal Pradesh. So what did we do? Throughout, we kept on needling China on this issue where we have recognized Tibet. We have recognized, not Tibet, we have recognized Chinese annexation of Tibet. If you have done that, you have no business to give them a place here. There are different ways you could have handled. And the people you have actually given Tibet, even they did not recognize right till 2003 that entire Arunachal belonged to India. So there has been a massive mismatch. There has been a mismatch in our perception of Tibet, the way geopolitics of Tibet has been played by us, the way it has been played by China. And I think China has played it in a very, very different way. And if you really ask and look at the history and all the events which have taken place, so probably the best period was from 1949, the day the communists came there, till thereafter for whatever years. Then we started with our various things with China, ending in 62 war. And did that finish? The manifestation has taken place in 2020 in Galwan. So this means there is something basically gone wrong in all these years. So whether it is military, whether it is bureaucracy, whether it is the politicians, there's something that is not correct. And this is what I speak of. Yeah.
Okay. So,
You can actually conclude the session.
yeah, actually, yeah, this is a very vital issue that you've raised about how whether historical continuity of any region, should that be something that makes us think about geopolitics. It's too intense an issue to actually be spoken of here, but I would like to say in the end that yeah, we need to relook at what we have done with China. Definitely, we need to see. We need to look at more documentary evidence. We have only had a very small portion of the Henderson Brooks Bhagat report, which has been declassified, and and even as far as the Kargil war goes, even we have not examined these events with the rigor that they should have been done. So yes, there are a lot of unexplained questions about this region, which if we don't want to see another 25 years of manifestation of the past, which we will need to have to take head on, I guess I would want to conclude at this point that yeah, these should be in the graph of geopolitical issues which are important.
The precise point which I am making, it is not pointing finger at any one government or any one person. The point is that there is definitely a need for having a complete relook at all our policies of past. And yes, it may be a bitter pill to swallow, but we must do something so that we at least start writing our next 25 years.
Yeah.
So it cannot be a reactive scenario as a status quo or permanent. Every time it is a reactive scenario. So we need to have a relook at it.
Okay.
Thanks a lot for joining us for this episode, and look forward to all of you joining us in the episode number 3 with Professor Sonali Chitarkar. Thank you so much. This is Colonel Sanjay Pandey for you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.